Welcome to another episode of What's New in Beauty. My name is Nia Lee, and I'm super excited to have you guys here. I know it's been a minute, and I feel like I said that during the last podcast episode that I put out, but I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I've been feeling a little bit uninspired lately with the beauty industry and the landscape, but also I started my own beauty brand in that time frame as well, and so I think my attention has just been in other places, but I am trying, and then on top of that, I've been having major imposter syndrome, not feeling like myself, not feeling like I know exactly where I fit in this world of beauty anymore because I'm not doing what I was doing before in terms of doing essentially social media marketing for beauty brands. But I don't know. My head's all over the place, but neither here nor there. I decided that I wanted to come through and really just, and then also actually, let me backpedal. I was getting tired of talking about celebrity beauty brands all the time, but it seems like that's what everybody is talking about. And regardless, I am here to share my opinion and to talk more about it, and even just to add my own perspective as I continuously always do, and not just report the news, but also, again, share a little bit more of my 2 cents on that, which again, I typically always do. So it's typically me just getting out of my head. But neither here nor there. I'm really excited for this episode today because it's going to be a little different, and I'm going to try to see if I can incorporate more of these in these podcast episodes going forward. I'd love to do interviews and other things like that, but I really want to talk about interesting topics, interesting takes, and one actually came upon, my essential email marketing, beauty research kind of thing that I do typically weekly or quite honestly daily. And it was honestly about this topic really is interesting to me because I have such a love and hate for this platform, but I've also been a part of the beauty world in the sense of I remember 2006 when the beauty YouTuber world was really just starting to take off and influencers started being a thing. And so this article talks all about how TikTok killed the beauty YouTuber. And I thought this was such an interesting take. I thought this was such an interesting article, but the points in here are so incredible. And then I also want to deep dive even further into it because this title alone, How TikTok Killed the Beauty YouTuber, and I also just really want to share my take on it as well too, because like I said, I grew up in the era where in 2006, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow was the number one thing that everybody and their mom was talking about, and they kind of got in early with the beauty influencer thing. I mean, there's brands like Makeup Geek and so on and so forth, and what's that other brand that everybody used to love? I don't remember, but they had eyeshadows and they were very affordable. But everybody has their own take of the beauty world and the rise and fall of it and where everybody, fits in it. But I can honestly say that I have been a part, and I'm still a part of it because I'm 26, and I remember being, how old was I when it was 2006? I think I was in grade 6, so I was 11 or 12. I remember being so influenced by it, by beauty YouTubers, by the beauty space. And so this article talks about, like I said, how TikTok killed the beauty YouTuber. And if you're unaware of TikTok, I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of it. This is the love and hate that I have for TikTok because it's a great platform. It's, I know so many brands. I know so many, influencers, even celebs that have just blossomed on the app and really use it to their advantage. But then on top of that, you have the beauty YouTuber side of it where, again, YouTubers were coming from this long form place of vlogs and makeup hauls and tutorials. And now all of that has been shifted over to the TikTok platform or Instagram where everything is short form. Everybody wants their content in less than 30 seconds, less than 15 seconds, less than 10 seconds. But then you have also TikTok too that's leaning into long form as well. So those 10-minute beauty YouTuber videos that people would watch on YouTube, now they're going to watch them on TikTok because they're on TikTok already. So that's kind of my little hot take on that and the app itself, and then of course the beauty YouTuber. But let's dive into the article because there's tons of nuggets in here that I really, really, really want to unpack. So the author, Julie Mason, essentially says, while working on an article about a makeup brand's rise and fall last month, I realized the company's failures were a symptom of something larger, a change in who wields influence in beauty and where people go to be influenced. And I thought this was really interesting because there's a lot of brands, specifically makeup brands, that have had a huge rise and a fall quite quite frequently, one of the brands that really sticks out to me is Becca Cosmetics. If you guys don't remember, in a previous episode of What's New in Beauty, I spoke about Becca Cosmetics being discontinued or, essentially out of business. Another brand was BH Cosmetics that actually went bankrupt I believe this year, almost like 2 or 3 months ago as well. Also brands like Marc Jacobs, for example, that didn't get out of business, but I don't believe we're going to be selling at Sephora anymore. And everybody thought they were going to be discontinued and everything. And so it's just interesting to me how the idea of a makeup brand's rise and fall is such a common thing now, especially because, again, the beauty landscape and the industry has changed and not so many people are going makeup heavy anymore. Like more people are looking for that hybrid. They're looking for a perfect in between, 5-minute makeup or, model makeup or that no makeup look. And then skincare, because skincare has honestly taken over, and you see a lot of brands now that are leaning into skincare and trying to figure out what's the perfect blend between skincare and makeup and beauty as a whole. And so I love that. And I'm really interested as well. I would love to even possibly know what that makeup brand is, but I think even the conversation of influencing in beauty, beauty YouTubers were the voice of the beauty industry. They were the ones letting us know what was hot, what was not. If there was something new that dropped, brands would lean into influencers, specifically those beauty YouTubers that had tons and tons of clout, tons and tons of, experience, let's just say followers, subscribers, whatever you want to call it. And now this conversation of who is wielding that influence in the beauty industry, right? Is it people who have millions and millions of followers and subscribers like it once was, or who at least were on the rise of that? Because even the influencers that I'm thinking about right now, like the Patrick Stars of the world, who else? The Manny MUA, the Jackie Ainas, so many people, right? Who at one point didn't have hundreds of thousands and millions of people subscribing and following them, but now do. And now we've even seen those individuals kind of shift away from YouTube ever so slightly. Still, a lot of them lean into it, but so many of them have brands now. So many of them are doing so many different partnerships. And so this conversation of who influences beauty and where people are going to go to be influenced is a really, really big part. So I love that is kind of how she shifted the article. And then she says here, YouTube once attracted millions of viewers with tutorials and transformation videos that featured makeup looks that almost no one would leave the house in. Very true. I remember some of these looks that these YouTubers would be doing. But again, at the time in 2006, mid 2000s, going into 2009, 10, beauty was really taking over, and people would whether or not they would leave the house or not, it really doesn't even matter. It's just that people were doing these looks. We were doing the big box brows. We were doing the heavy foundation. We were going, layer on layer on layer on layer. But now, and like she says here in the article, today's consumer wants something else. And we can definitely see that. If you're aware of the beauty world, if you've been in it for, even if you've started into it right now, you can kind of see there's a lot of brands nowadays that are really just kind of doing things differently. They're really, whether they're extra Y2K, branding, or by the way that they talk, or the inclusivity, diversity piece, which is a big thing for a lot of brands now. It's just really interesting to see how everything has kind of changed. So again, the article says many of the people I've interviewed recently, especially those under 25, are disenchanted by how promotional everything has become, which isn't limited to paid product placement by a brand. It could also be an influencer pushing their own line, of which there are now many. Some would agree too many. And I think this is really interesting too, because I'm 26, right? So I'm not this under age 25 thing is an interesting thing. I've remember being here. And I will say this, that under 25, you're getting into that Gen Z, of course, which is kind of people are now realizing that they're tired of being sold to. But it's interesting because I'm also on two sides of it. I'm on the marketing side and I'm also in the beauty brand side, where people don't necessarily have a problem with being sold to if they feel it's, let's just say this, for example, if I'm another influencer, right, and I'm part of this legion of skincare influencers that, get the same PR from products or get this same PR from brands, get the same paid sponsorship gigs or whatever that may be, I don't think people have a problem with it. I think people are probably maybe tired of brands going ham with always shoving product down their face. But then we also live in a very consumeristic capitalistic society. I don't know if consumeristic is a word, but we live in a very consumer-based capitalist society where like that's what people love to do. Like Target haul videos is like a thing. Trader Joe's haul videos are a thing. Subscription unboxing videos are a thing. Our society, North America, is obsessed with capitalism and obsessed with buying things and showing people that we're buying things. So I find this interesting that like people are tired of how things, you know, have become so promotional, but at the same time are completely okay with taking a sponsored, paid, you know, advertisement, sponsorship gig, whatever that may be, from a brand, or getting free product from a brand, which that brand is going to go ahead and take that content, you know, that influencer essentially made, and now they're going to use those for their paid ads and so on and so forth, so that you can consistently continue being marketed to. So but again, this is from the brand side, how I'm thinking. I'm not thinking of, you know, me being 18 years old, 19 years old on social media, you know, realizing that every single thing that I see is an ad, or it's a, you know, it's a hashtag ad, or hashtag PR, hashtag gifted, or whatever it may be, right? So I just find it so interesting that like people, especially under age 25, are recognizing that, but then also, you know, getting tired of it as well too, because as we know, the celebrity beauty brand, even the, you know, influencer beauty brand thing is such an interesting pipeline, right? For example, Patrick Starr, huge beauty YouTuber, you know, who has his own brand, One Size, in Sephora, huge, right? Jackie Aina, you know, she has Forever Mood, her candle brand, when everybody thought she was going to start a makeup brand, but now she's selling in Sephora. Addison Rae, huge TikTok star who has her brand, Item Beauty, you know, in Sephora, right? And I actually spoke about this in a previous podcast episode as well. Hiram, right? Skincare guru that everybody and their mom swears by, has his own product that he collaborated with, has his own brand that he collaborated with, you know, in the Inkey List, and now they're selling in Sephora. So it's interesting how like so many influencers and YouTubers are now not essentially like, you know, being that sponsored ad placement influencer anymore. Now they have their own brands, and now they're shilling out that content, and now they're shilling out telling you, hey, buy from me. But the good thing is with that is that you understand where that influencer is coming from. You don't look at it as a cash grab because that individual has been, you know, into makeup or into skincare or into, you know, whatever for quite some time. And actually, I don't even want to say quite some time, because Addison Rae has been out, I think it's now 2 or 3 years, but essentially her pipeline to being an influencer, blowing up, and then having a brand in Sephora, not like literally under like 5 years. So essentially it's not necessarily like, you know, time, right? Again, with a Jackie Aina, for example, she's been on YouTube for 10 years, and Patrick Starr has been on YouTube for way longer, right? And you think about how these essential influencers who have been a part of like the fabric of the beauty industry are now getting into starting their own brands and again, doing these partnerships and so on. So I just find it so interesting how like, again, they're tired of it, but it's like we're all aware of it, and we're also still interested and still buying their stuff because these said individuals are very successful, right? These celebrity beauty brands that are coming out. I mean, like Hailey Bieber is going to be coming out with a makeup brand or makeup / skincare brand. So it's a very lucrative industry. And again, this conversation of the article, you know, they're saying, what happened to the allure of the beauty YouTuber? And she essentially says, in short, a migration to TikTok, dwindling attention spans, and new makeup trends. YouTube made stars out of people like Jaclyn Hill. Oh my God, yes. Marlena Stell, of course. Shout out to Makeup Geek. Tati Westbrook. Oh my God, yeah. Laura Lee. All these names are coming back to me. It's crazy. But it is no longer resonating with viewers or moving product. The same goes for the sterile SpawnCon of Instagram, where the go-to hashtag ad, an influencer holding up a jar or tube and praising the attributes of whatever they're being paid to promote feels stale. Which again, interesting. And I will say this again, being in the beauty industry in the sense of like the marketing side of things, but then also having my own brand, you know, I'm in the comments a lot. I'm researching, I'm looking for influencers and so on and so forth. And it's interesting to me how like when influencers, when they do like sponsored content, they typically don't get a lot of engagement, or the comments aren't there, or sometimes it is depending on the influencer, right? But I think a lot of the times what I see is that people are obsessed with the content that's not sponsored. But when it comes to sponsored content, it's like everybody knows the deal. And it's like they're not really interested in like engaging with that said content. But I also think the conversation of shortened attention spans is key, because now we're in a world where, like I said, it's 30 seconds or less, it's 15 seconds or less, it's 7 seconds, right? Instagram, I keep seeing these trending sounds that are like, Instagram is prioritizing 7-second videos. And it's like, damn, like, where is the threshold? And you want me to do a whole tutorial in 7 seconds? Like, this is crazy, right? It's so unrealistic, but it's like, we have the industry that we're in currently right now. Everybody is like okay with things being unrealistic, but then they also still want you to be real, or they still want you to be transparent. You know what I mean? In 7 seconds. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing altogether. But again, going back to the article, she says TikTok has dismantled the influencer hierarchy, which for close to a decade was dictated by longer form, high wattage YouTube content from experts. So true. Oh my God. I remember when the girlies were doing ring lights, they were doing soft boxes, they were doing, high key production. If you remember, shout out to Desi Perkins, probably one of my favorite influencers in the sense of like quality. Like she had the best camera quality, like out the gate almost too, you know what I mean? Like she started kind of like with everybody else, the Makeup Shaylas, the Alice Sarais and all that, but she had like high quality stuff in like 2010, and it's like, how? You know what I mean? And now it's just like, all you need is your phone and that's it, right? So again, going back to the article, a handful of gatekeepers holding all the power in beauty. What compels Gen Zs to buy products isn't followers, fancy videos, caked on foundation, or a collaboration with a mega beauty brand. Often it's another high school or college student with a TikTok video that just went viral. And I will say this, I completely agree. Because again, on an app like TikTok, where there's, billions and billions of people on that app. I have a love and hate relationship with it. As a consumer, I would rather be anywhere else, but as a brand owner and as someone who's in the marketing space, I have to be aware of this app and I have to use it and I have to figure it out. But again, I'm just not, love and hate with TikTok. Love and hate with TikTok. I'll leave it there. But the conversation of it being a high school student or a college student that's just, doing something viral, that is what TikTok is right now, right? There's tons of people, tons of individuals who are on that platform that are just kind of doing what they do. It's not super edited. There's no big quality of team. I find typically, even if the quality is too sharp, it's like people sense that and they're like, this is too perfect. Get out of here. You know what I mean? Like TikTok is literally like the ethos of the app is to be, just set up your phone or, very low key, not, it's interesting. I asked my 17 and my 17-year-old cousin, and I also asked my 13-year-old cousin, what is the appeal of TikTok? Because I had to ask them. I was like, what is the tea? And they were like, you just gotta be chill. You just gotta be chill. I'm like, okay, like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I'm the opposite of chill. But it's so interesting to me how, like, the chill video from the high school or college student talking about like a product, let's just say, for example, and it's not even really like advertising it. It's typically like them just being excited about it. It's like, yo, I've been using this thing for years and it cleared up my scars. Or, I don't know if you guys knew this, but this is a hack to like get an extra discount at Sephora. Like it's little things like that really catch on because they feel very authentic and organic. And I've even noticed brands trying to copy that same ethos. And it's actually typically why a lot of brands will hire high school or college students as interns or content creators, because they know that's what the app really likes, right? And that's, like I said, here, that's the stuff that goes viral. That's the stuff that people care about. That's the stuff that people are paying attention to, because if I hear this from a friend that I know from high school, like I'm going to listen to her even more. And again, if it becomes this thing where everybody on the TikTok app, there's huge age ranges on TikTok, but I feel like the individuals that dominate the app the most are typically within that under age 25 range. So I just find it very interesting as well that like typically that's the video that goes viral. That's the video that people care about. And I even, brings up this idea of, that video that went super duper viral earlier in the year, Peter Thomas Roth. We actually spoke about it on the podcast. And it was this lovely, lovely lady. She tried out the Peter Thomas Roth. I believe it's like their firming under eye like paste cream, whatever you want to call it. And very interesting how when she posted that video went viral. And when I tell you, this is like the most chill, low key. She probably had her phone like propped up on a windowsill. She was doing the video and you could see the before and after like right in front of you. And I think that's really why people caught on. But again, it's that type of video that people want to see because they're tired of everything being perfect. They're tired of everything being just very highbrow because it's unattainable, right? We live in a time now where like people don't have money to spend on like $1,000 cameras, right? But then they'll spend $1,000 on an iPhone. So I don't know. But we live in this time where like everybody is just trying to use what they have at their expense and also not make the biggest deal out of it. Like you'll notice a lot of the influencers and a lot of brands now are recognizing that, and they're kind of moving away from the model-esque perfect figure. They're leaning away from retouched photos. Now we're doing unretouched. You know how many brands I've seen in the last like year or two that have like vocally put a stamp and said we are doing unretouched, and of course everybody's obsessed with it because again, we just live in a time now where it's like short form, it's real, it's authentic. But again, is it real and authentic if like brands are doing it knowing that's what people want? I'm just wondering because it's different if like, because I'll say this, it's an interesting things when like brands will send products out to influencers, and let's just say it is a ad, maybe it is a sponsored piece of content. I mean, we're still seeing it, right? Where people will talk about a brand, they won't realize that it's an ad or it's sponsored or so on and so forth. And then, you know, some of these brands or these influencers get caught because they didn't put hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored when they, you know, were aware that this was an ad in some way, shape, or form. And people think it's this organic piece of content, but it's really not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an interesting way of thinking about all of it. But just to finish up this article here, she says beauty routines and purchases are inspired by 30-second to 1 minute clips of content made by regular people. There we go. Which is exactly how TikTok's directory-driven algorithm is designed to work. It's the same idea, the promotion of a new mascara or a Clinique lipstick. Oh my God, that Clinique lipstick that everybody and their mom went viral over, to the point where I even saw, what's her name? The girl from Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke, I think that. They like paid her to like do this again lowbrow ad video about this Clinique lipstick. I believe it's like the Black Cherry or whichever it's called. And that went viral. I remember regular people talking about it. And then when I saw they brought in Emilia Clarke, because I believe Emilia Clarke is like an ambassador for Clinique, I knew it was over. Like I knew like Clinique had an idea about what was going on. And because again, she's a celebrity, right? Because it's interesting. As much as we love the content from regular people, it's like we still love the content from celebrities, I guess, quote unquote, acting like regular people, in the sense they are. But it's like, this person is worth millions of dollars. They are not regular. They are going to influence people because they are already celebrities. So I just found that interesting. But except it's amplified by a lot of non-influencers who happen to also produce great content. Super duper true. This poses a challenge for content creators whose livelihoods depend on paid partnerships and the brands that rely on influencers to advertise their products. The beauty industry is rushing to identify and align with the next big thing, which could work great in the short term. But what happens when a real person with a viral video starts getting millions of followers and the brand's deal starts to roll in? The bigger you get, the more spawn con you do, the less your followers trust you. We're back at square one, which I think altogether, this is so interesting because it just becomes this cycle, because we've seen it time and time again. That person who was on YouTube, that person who had been on YouTube for 5 to 10 plus years, who's now starting to get the clout, who's now starting to get millions of followers, million subscribers, the brand deals. We start seeing them get their Louis bags. We start seeing them in their expensive cars, you know, traveling, jet setting, whatever you want to call it. And it's interesting. It's like, we love these people when they're real and when they're unknown, quote unquote. But it's like, if that unknown real person starts working with brands and starts gaining followers and love and all that, are they still this real person? Like, are they still this, you know? And I've seen so many influencers go through this kind of push and pull or tug of war with where they land, because again, a lot of these times, these are just real, regular, degular people that decided to just start posting content. Their content started to get, you know, viral or views or whatever it may be. The brand deals start rolling in, the followers start coming, the subscribers start coming, things start looking differently for them. And then they either get tired of creating that said content, or they start doing other things that are more, focused, right? They might not want to keep doing sponsored content from brands. Maybe they want to start their own brand. And that's kind of where I think we are right now, is that a lot of people are realizing, especially during the pandemic when everybody, things stopped for a lot of influencers and people. And we had a lot of time to, quote unquote, spend money or be on these social platforms or think about these ideas about starting our own brands and businesses. And people are realizing that at any point, anything could happen. And so how do we now turn this success or this following into something that's quote unquote monetizable, or how do we monetize on it? And so I think altogether it does become this big circle. It does become this big hamster wheel of like, yes, we're back to square one now, right? The more sponsored content you do, the less your followers trust you. And I think it's interesting because it depends. There's influencers that I've followed or I used to watch years and years and years, where I just realized every video they started putting out was a sponsored piece of content. And I think I will also say this, we're also in a time now where everybody's kind of like, yo, run me my coins. Like, if any of y'all realize that, like, we're also in a time where people are saying like, yo, get the sponsored content. But it's interesting because it's like, get your sponsored content, get your coins, girl. But, the engagement's low. So again, we live in a society where everybody is very fickle. And as much as people love you when you're unknown and when you don't have those deals rolling in or you don't have those followers, they like that, and they love calling you underrated, and they love saying that, oh my God, you're so real. Oh my God, you're so transparent. Oh my God, you're so authentic. But then when things start to roll in, it's like, oh my God, I can't relate to you anymore. And if you guys have a chance, definitely make sure to check out this video from Jackie Aina. I'm actually going to find the title so you guys can actually watch that said video. But I think it was really interesting just to kind of hear it from her perspective again. And I keep talking about Jackie Aina a lot because I do love me some Jackie. But this video that she did, I believe it was 5 months ago, and she specifically talks about Black influencers aren't relatable and don't post anymore. And I loved that video. Again, it was a very telling video because she specifically talks about the Black YouTuber influencer experience and how people love to kind of put you in a box a little bit, and when you're able to get outside of that box and start to get deals and start to get followers, and you start to, I guess, quote unquote, go outside of what they thought you were, they think you're unrelatable. But I think that goes across for every influencer, every beauty YouTuber, every person who's a content creator. People love you when you're unknown. They love saying you're the best, kept secret, or you're a hidden gem or whatever. And then when you start getting bigger, it's like, oh my God, I can't relate to you. Oh my God, like all you do is sponsor content. Oh my God, like this, that, and the third. But it's like, people got to pay their bills. Like a lot of these people are now influencers by trade, by career, by job. So how do you expect people just to kind of live off of brand deals every now and again? No, they're going to start their own businesses, or they're going to do other partnerships, or they're going to find other gigs, because maybe being a beauty YouTuber was a gateway to being like a show host, or, like I said, a brand owner, or maybe getting a really high executive job for one of these beauty brands. You know what I mean? Like everything is really this beautiful cycle. And at the same time, this conversation of TikTok killing the beauty influencer and how they did it, I think TikTok definitely played a big part in that, in the sense of a lot of people's attention spans got shorter, and a lot of people were tired of hearing from the same 10 people over and over again in the beauty YouTuber space. But what I will say is we're also just in a time where like everybody's doing things differently, right? There's influencers coming from so many different angles. There's people, again, who are in high school that started just posting videos on TikTok and are now, larger than life. They're going to the Met Gala, or they're at award shows, or they're getting awards. So I think it's just so interesting how this world, this beauty space, how TikTok has changed it, how even Instagram has changed it as well too. But I think what matters the most is that there's room for everybody and everybody can do what they need to do. But it's also just kind of the conversation of longevity. Do you feel like there's longevity in this, in this content creation space, in this influencer world? And sometimes there isn't, because again, if you are doing a lot of sponsored content and a lot of people are engaging on that, brands are going to see that and they're going to think, oh, well, what's going on? So then you might have to do something different. You might have to do something else. And I guess the overarching thing is really all about pivoting and adapting and knowing when to move on and when to change, because that video that I'm recommending you from Jackie, that was 5 months ago. She hasn't posted on YouTube in 5 months, but she's been super active on Instagram, on her other Instagram page, Lavishly Jackie, but then also her brand, Forever Mood, that's like killing it. So it's very interesting to see how everything has changed. It's very interesting to see how people have pivoted. People are recognizing it, and I think we're also in a time where people are calling things out as well too, whether or not they, quote unquote, deserve to be called out or not. At the core of it, the reason why these individuals are where they're at is because of regular people like you and me who are sitting there and watching them, sitting there supporting their brands, buying their products, and so on and so forth. So again, we also live in a time where like people love to build you up and they love to tear you down. So it's really understanding where to toe the line, where to walk the line, and also pivot and adapt. Because like I said, a lot of these influencers, a lot of these people I've mentioned, a lot of them have shifted their content over to these other platforms, or they've just diversified. They're not just on YouTube anymore. They're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on TikTok, they're on Pinterest, they're on Twitch. They're doing so many different things. So I think it's also the time where like people are understanding that you can't put your eggs in one basket anymore, because everything now is becoming quote unquote saturated. Even though I really don't think it's becoming saturated, I just think everybody has a lane. So you just got to figure out where your lane is and don't try to copy what anybody else is doing. And I think we're also in that time as well too, where at a time being a beauty YouTuber, there was a starter kit. There was a look you needed to have, or you weren't going to be in the cool kids club, right? Like all the influencers that went on the Tarte PR trips and the Becca, PR trips, there was a certain makeup that these influencers had to have. They needed to be caked up. They needed to be doing tutorials. They needed to be doing unboxings. They needed to have this, they all needed to be in LA, right? Everybody needed to have this they all needed this ring light. They all needed, the IKEA Alex drawers, right? Like, I believe they're called the Alex drawers. But at the end of the day, we're in this time where like everybody has pivoted and everybody's doing things differently. And with apps like TikTok that, have come in and really have shaken the table, have all these other apps shaking in their boots, because they realize at the end of the day that anybody can be a creator, anybody can be an influencer, anybody has the opportunity to do that. And I think there's something admirable about that. But then I also think there's a part of it where the app itself still becomes this commodified place where people are still doing hashtag ad and hashtag sponsored. But people are also realizing at the same time that like, I don't have to engage with that type of stuff if I don't want to. I can still follow real regular people and be interested in them. But again, this conversation of what happens when they go viral, right? Now they're unrelatable. Now we're back to square one. And now everybody's kind of in this big circle, in this big loop. So I found this article very, very telling and very, very awesome. Again, shout out to Julie Mason for putting this out and really kind of being the, voice of reason for this topic. Again, I'm really interested in talking more about this because, again, somebody being in this space who has seen kind of the evolution of the beauty industry, and I definitely think there's more to come. I think now more than ever, like skincare is it. That's what everybody and their mom is talking about. And it's like, how do we now talk about skincare, because skincare is such a, it's a touchy subject. It's not like makeup where anybody can really just try the makeup and, do whatever they want. Skincare is so personal. And then that's why we have brands that are, a little bit more personalized or more like Gen Z focused, or, brands that are marketing to 40 and up, age 40 and up. So I just think this topic was super duper interesting. If you guys enjoyed this and have more thoughts on it as well too, please definitely let me know, and I'd be happy to talk more about topics like this as well too, because they're really interesting and they definitely feed the brain, and it definitely also confirms things that I've been thinking about for quite some times when it comes to the beauty industry space and social media and where it all plays together. And so without further ado, y'all, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of What's New in Beauty, and I'll catch you in the next one.